Welcome back to the Decode Podcast booth here at IPC APEX 2025. And we're joined by Mr. Jason Wahba with JW Corporation. And first, before we get started, Jason, just wanted to thank you for these sweet Unity pins here.
Yes.
I know there's been a lot in the news, and we won't get into it too crazy, but we got Canadian and the American flag together. And Jason is a friend from the north of us, so welcome, and hope you're having a great show so far.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. You know what? And just wanted to throw out there, you guys are brothers and sisters, and it's like friends and family across, or we're crossing that border like there is no border anyway, legally, of course, but without fentanyl in our pockets. But no, it's great to be here, and we got so many friends in the industry and everything, so it's just fantastic, and super happy to be here. And guys, congratulations on all this that's going on, this momentum right behind you guys. It's just
thank you.
It's fantastic, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
So the theme of our podcast this year has been about problems and solutions. I know you're an international man of travel.
Yeah.
And, we were talking a little bit earlier off air about some of the things you've seen on your travel trips, right? If you could kind of talk about some of the things you've seen over there and how you were comparing it to what's going on over here.
So since I started the company in 2017, I've made it a point to travel as much as I can. Visit shops anywhere I go, whether I'm on a trip, on a vacation, whatever. There's manufacturing everywhere. It's a lot of times it's electronic manufacturing or any kind of manufacturing in any way whatsoever. I've learned a lot through that. This summer, particularly, I was in Asia. I was touring around in Japan and in Taiwan, and I saw a lot of eye-opening stuff. I hadn't been out to Asia since before COVID, and just like over here, we saw a lot of automation when COVID hit. If you didn't, you were in trouble because machines don't need distances and they work all the time and they don't work from home and all that kind of stuff. So, automation has been the key. And I've done other interviews, and we're always talking about, you need to automate, you need to be more lean. And I knew that they had already been there, in Asia was already quite far ahead of us on that front, and going there after COVID, and it's been a couple of years now, it's really, really advanced to a whole other level. And there was a lot of stuff that was eye-opening on that trip, and just the level of automation that they're bringing forward, and not the typical automation, just like, SMT but other things, right? Bringing Cobots into the mix, and a whole bunch of other peripherals that just really automate the processes that we don't necessarily think about doing, right? A lot of times we're looking at equipment that's already ready, but we're not thinking about outside of the box and some of the other stuff.
We have a lot of, one of our biggest volume runners has a lot of tedious, detailed things that we consider. We've tried to figure out ways to automate the process, but a lot of it is really challenging. So that's probably where we need probably fresh eyes to come in and look at it, because sometimes when you're siloed in your own vision, you kind of have tunnel vision on what the problem is, and you don't have maybe a broad enough view of how to approach it because you're too used to the limitations that you've been pushing up against, So I could see how bringing somebody in who's seen automation applied successfully in different ways could be super useful to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exactly what you say, how you get siloed. We're used to doing a certain thing, and it's regional. It really is. And it's not that they're doing it better, they're doing it differently, right?
Yeah. Sure.
They do have some higher level ways of doing certain things. But again, then I see things here that they don't do there, and I'll be like, hey, you guys ever think of that? And they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting, right? So it's a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite automation that you've seen that you feel like a customer could get the biggest ROI on right away?
That's a good question. So that brings me to another point that I saw over there. The cost of automation is a lot lower over there than it is here. And so it's one of the things that's kind of lacking over here, and it feels like it's almost done on purpose, is they have certain types of equipment available to them, but at a much lower cost, like Cobots, for instance. They have a lot more. They have brands that we've never heard of, and they're not interested in our market because our market is just, you might buy one, you might buy one, you might buy one. their customers, they sell, they only have to sell them on one, then the customer will buy 100 pieces. So the market becomes a lot more interesting and a lot easier to support because you've got the volume behind it. Our market is more difficult because, we just hired a guy who started in the US for us, and he'll drive 4 hours or 5 hours to see 2 customers.
Yeah.
So, the return on investment for them as a manufacturer is a little bit more difficult.
That's an interesting point, that there would be much wider scale adoption, I believe, if it wasn't so cost prohibitive, right? If there was an easier entrance to ownership, more folks would be adept to looking at these highly manual processes and say, hey, well, we can get, XYZ system at this cost.
And beyond the cost, you also have to have the knowledge of how to implement it.
Sure. And that's probably another area where we may be lacking is folks in our space that have a strong and robust understanding of how best to work these systems into our processes. I think that's growing because there's so much buzz around it, right? I mean, if you go to any trade show, if you see a booth that has a cobot or a robot in it, people are just drawn to it. So there's definitely a high amount of interest.
Well, and as a high mix, low volume manufacturer, we desperately rely on automation. We have to have it. I mean, if the only way that as a small little company you can compete in any way, you need the tools that are going to allow you to perform like you're a bigger company. I mean, when we implemented a selective soldering process, we were taking jobs that had been done by hand historically and take 4 to 5, sometimes even 10 times as long to do by hand as it did once we changed to automation. So the amount of savings that you can then pass on to the customer once you've properly applied automation, it isn't to get rid of employees, it's to provide more value to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you guys a question, and this will fall for all of you guys. At what point do you usually start to look at automation? Let's say you get a new project. Are you looking at automating right off the bat? Or are you saying, okay, let's run this a little bit, we'll do it in a manual process, and then as we scale up, we'll look at automating?
For me, it's about quantity and labor time. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. I would love a conformal coating machine. I don't have the demand that requires it. I get a couple bulk orders of 15, 20,000 pieces a year. It takes one sticker on it and one little cap that we put a little clip on, and then we spray, done, right? And that's repeated 15 to 20,000 times.
No masking?
No, that's the mask is the sticker that goes over the pinning,
programming
pins. Okay. And then we have a little cap that goes over a connector that we put like a little binder clip on and then spray it. So the question is, that labor cost for me is 7 seconds plus 37 seconds to peel the sticker, place the sticker, and then another couple seconds for putting the cap on, clipping, and then with a total time of 37 seconds including with the spray, right?
Okay.
So then I can take my cost on that labor rate, right? 37 seconds a board, right? And then I can apply that across the board, see how long it would take to do that versus buying the machine, 80,000, 120,000, depending on your values. How long would it take me to get an ROI on that? Because I know I can get away with a profit on this.
Yeah.
So for me, I do the numbers. It's got to make sense financially. And I don't want to get a return I don't want to wait 5 years for a return. I want to see that return within at least a year or two. So if I'm going to make that money back right away, for me, that's when I automate.
Okay. So what I had noticed over there is they don't ever take that approach.
Okay.
It's automate first.
That's how we look at it also.
It's automate first all the time, right? So how they look at it is, okay, we're going to get this job. And even if it's lower volume, right? Because I saw some guys they don't do, high mix, low volume, but they'll do high mix, medium volume, right? And then, how you interpret what medium and high volume is might be different in different territories.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, the mindset is very different. And this was in Japan and Taiwan especially, is as soon as they're quoting, they're already thinking, okay, we're going to probably have to do this in an automation. And they're like, this is our opportunity that maybe we're not going to make the money on this job, but this is going to allow us to tool up. And if we start to scale for this customer, it'll be very difficult for anyone to displace us because we made the investment from day one, right? So that allows them to be more competitive, because now if a year into it, somebody else tries to compete and this guy has to now tool up, well, that guy can lower his cost because he's already 1 year into his payments on that piece of equipment or investment. that he initially did.
It's an aggressive strategy.
It is, but that's the mindset that they have constantly over there. I mean, not to the point where they're going to break the bank,
Sure.
but there are solutions that we don't necessarily see, right? They're a lower cost or some kind of tabletop system, for your coding. That would be a third of that cost, right? So it's a step in that direction, but they try and avoid manual labor at all costs.
I got a $40 Harbor Freight air gun hooked up to an airline, and I'll put that up against any conformal coating machine any day, right?
Yeah.
And when you compare what my output is with that thing and the way it sprays and how it looks visually afterwards, I'm happy with it. The customers are happy with it. They do little tests and it passed, right? So
I'm impressed that you have like an air gun now, because I think before you didn't even have an air compressor. You were just blowing into the line, right?
That's a lot of hot air.
But he's full of it.
with a balloon, right? So it was preconditioned oxygen or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, I've always done the Harbor Freight route. I did buy an upgraded version, though. I was using like the $19 version. Now I'm using the $40 version.
This is a plug for Harbor Freight people.
Yeah, that's what everyone here is talking about, Harbor Freight.
Yeah, all of us.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us here. Hopefully you had a great show. And
yeah, and on behalf of all of us, we want to thank JW for their support of the podcast.
No doubt.
And we really appreciate that. It's our first year here, and having folks in our corner and helping us along the way has been huge. So thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure, guys. Really, what you guys are doing is good for everybody. It's good for the industry. Everybody benefits from it. And a lot of people. It's nice to see guys, quasi competitors. Yes and no, right? But at the end of the day, there's if we're doing the right things, there's room for everybody.
Yep.
And we all grow together. And we educate customers. We grow the whole industry. Everybody benefits. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So it's electronics, as big as it is, it's really small. And
it's a small world.
Yeah. And you guys are, I think you're all your first timers for the show.
It's second time for me.
Second time, yeah. Well, welcome. But you're going to see these people, and I'm excited to come out to the show because it's such a great community. It's such a great industry, and really, and people are like, how did you fall into it? And I'm like, I don't know, but
nobody does.
Once you get in, you're stuck. It's like Hotel California, man.
It's sticky.
You're never, you can check out anytime you like, but you're never going to leave, right?
Yeah.
So it's great.
Well, thank you so
very
much.
much.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, guys.